too much time on this commentary to the sewer crystal because I don't think there's enough interesting things to say about that super, super long part of the game.
Well, you can just complain the whole time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see what happens. But there's so much going on there.
That's a rare part of the game that both of us had something to do with, actually.
So, Mike, did you do the original design here on Aquatos, or what was going on?
What
was your role here?
This is one of the first levels that I actually started from a paper design, and that I actually did all the enemy setups for. The biggest pain in the ass in this level was getting Skid McMarks to run through the level. It was madness. So he's using the same system that the Battlefields and the Galactic Rangers are using. So if you remember, we said before, we don't have scripting in this game. We're not designers aren't capable of doing this kind of sort of thing. So basically, poor Jared and I had to set this up together so that Skid would run through here, and it was just like if Skid didn't work, you couldn't get through the level. It was an A bug. It was awful. But design-wise, I think my biggest issue here was I sucked at making enemy placements. I was really bad at them, just because I hadn't had a lot of experience with them yet, right?
Right.
And so what I did this time was I said, hey, Colin, because Colin was good at enemy setups, if you design the enemy setups for me on this level, I'll totally design some puzzle segments for you on a different level. So I basically took this level I was supposed to design and then ended up splitting it with Colin because I was just so woefully inadequate at making enemy setups.
So, I don't remember this level at all. Like, I'm just looking through this, and I don't recall anything that's going on right now. Like, I remember Skid running around and doing the hacker stuff, but this is all, like, seeing it again for the first time for me. It's so bizarre. Like, I really blocked this whole thing out of my memory. Because of the sewer pipe section, which...
Is that in this level?
I think so. It might not be.
I can't remember. Oh, Buck, I can't remember how to swim.
I think this is the only swimming section we have in the game.
It might be. Oh man, but it was on the macro, so I had to put it in.
Right, one swimming traversal segment.
Oh, here's some sewer pipes.
Oh god, I remember this. This is all weird.
And then there's a mama Tyrannoid, I think, that's gonna... Yeah, there we go. Or not Tyrannoid.
Amoeboid.
Yeah.
Look how shiny he is.
Well,
that's
this is
that's
the first...
new tech.
Yeah, we didn't have Specular before, did we?
Brand new next-gen tech right there for Ratchet and Clank 3.
Right on your PlayStation 2. So the main design requirement in this level, like when it was given to me, was that it be about, you know, a member of the Q-Force helping you get through the level. Because the whole big story thing in this game was that it was, you know, you and the Q-Force versus evil. It wasn't just Ratchet. He had a team. Like James Bond. Wait.
Yeah, the one recollection I have from this level is that I didn't really have a big role in it, but at the end, everyone pitched in to fix all kinds of bugs. But basically, whenever you died, getting Skid back to a reasonable point was just utterly insane.
Oh god, that sounds awful.
Yeah, the amount of code that we had for all the different cases of where you could die and where you could respawn, and Skid just not being in the right place or as AI being in the wrong state was just mental.
So, when I knew that we were going to have a guy running along with you, what I really didn't want was to make a dork challenge, right? I didn't want you to have to protect Skid, because those always suck. I've never seen them done in a way that don't suck. So, basically, the thing was, the enemies attack you, they ignore Skid.
Way to die, Mike.
Yeah, you know what? Oh god, all the way back at the beginning. Oh.
Yeah, you should have paid more attention to the game, and less to you bragging about how brilliant you are.
And you should suck my balls.
Right, but so you didn't want to make a door count challenge for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's I mean, they suck, right? Has anyone ever done them well?
There's this little game I heard of called Eco. It's not bad.
Oh,
Like, I'm not actually joking. What the hell game is that?
you don't know Eco?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Well, you're gonna get some hate mail. I think.
Is it?
Maybe I'm mispronouncing it for you, Ico.
It's okay. I know Ico. I never played it, but I know it.
Yeah, you're getting just as much hate mail then.
Yeah, exactly. How dare you be a game developer
I'm gonna-
who hasn't played Ico?
I'm gonna go a little step further and say that I didn't play Shadow of the Colossus because I heard it was terrible.
Oh,
So
well, you're.
send me more hate mail, everybody.
Yeah, please take it off of me for doing the sewer pipes and send it to Mike for not playing these brilliant games.
You know what, Tony? Why make our fans choose? Why can't they just send us both hate mail?
No, one or the other. That's the way it goes.
All right, you heard it first, guys. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we can get back into it. Escort missions are at the very least difficult to do well.
I'll stipulate that. Yeah, they're difficult, and ultimately frustrating when because if you feel like the non-player character you're protecting is not doing anything to stop getting brutalized, then it feels like the game is just screwing you over. It's cheating.
Right.
So there's a really high bar on the AI, and as I mentioned, we had practically no ability to do anything with Skid's AI. So it wasn't really an option for us to even try to do an escort challenge well.
Right.
Which for some reason we called dork challenges at Insomniac. I don't. It was along the with the word kludge and a few other things that I've never heard, or hero collision. I've never heard anyone else say that.
I've taken that terminology to other places I've gone because it's a wonderful
fuck.
bit of terminology.
I don't know how to swim.
Mike, you're absolutely terrible at this.
Hey, remember the thing about my balls? You can do that again.
So really quickly, that Moo brought up something before about how we were all pitching in to do bugs at the end of the project. Moo was actually giving me a run for my money in terms of bug count a little bit on this game, not in terms of bugs that he entered, but at least in terms of bugs that he fixed on this game, which was interesting.
I think nothing compares to the one night. I think Tony fixed somewhere around 100 or 200 bugs in one night.
I don't know, probably. That sounds.
But yeah,
reasonable.
we were all there, pretty late, and by pretty late I mean on to the next day. But yeah, we sort of got an influx of bugs. From I guess key stakeholders finally had a chance to review everything, and in their 5-hour playthrough wrote somewhere about 400 or 500 bugs.
Oh, man,
I think
remember
150 of which went to Tony.
I remember that night. I remember that well, where we just got pages and pages of Excel spreadsheets.
Was that your 3-day in a row stay?
Yeah, that was that whole section.
Do you want to?
I believe it was during this game.
Do you want to tell the story of your 3-day stay? Because I might remember it better than you do.
Yeah, you can go ahead, but there's really not too much to tell. I mean, we like Moose said that the leads and Ted one day decided to get through and just play through the game when we were well on into development. I mean, it had to be about at least halfway into the project, right, Moo? Around there?
Yeah, I think it was right after Alpha. I think we were about to have our first playtest.
Oh. And it was just like, and this was one of the first games, because a lot of the key principles had moved, like as we said a couple times before, had moved on to Resistance, and that was sort of where their focus was on for a good part of the development here. And so they decided to just like, all right, well, let's go look at the game and see where things need to get fixed. And there were a lot of things that needed to get fixed.
If I remember correctly, this game was a disaster until 2 weeks before Gold.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think that's a fair thing to say.
I remember going out to lunch with the designers, and all of us just like we're putting like earthquake blankets over each other and trying not to cry. And I think Colin said, "I'm really worried that we will make Insomniac's first failure." And then like 2 weeks later, it was the highest rated game Insomniac's ever made. So it just goes to show what 2 weeks can do.
Yeah. How did that feel, Moo? To have people saying that they were afraid they were going to make the biggest failure on your first game.
I didn't hear that part.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't really hear it from them. I just sort of I think at that point in the project, I wasn't probably feeling a whole lot. I was just loading up my bug list, counting bugs, and trying to get the number lower.
Did you ever have that sort of fear when you were going into it? Like, this is my first thing. I have to make sure it's excellent and it's not up to my standards. Did that ever occur to you at all, or?
I think there was, a little bit of fear on that kind of stuff, but, when you sort of get into it, you get too close and you sort of don't realize, what you're working on and what the quality is anymore. It's just like, all you see is just the pain of a million bugs, like every single time you load the game, you're just like trying to avert your eyes from the obvious bugs at that given point in time. So it's hard to be objective.
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing that just keeps popping out to me, I don't know if you guys have talked about this, is the orange HUD. I remember
we talked a little about the orange HUD,
but I know you're so passionate about this, so I'm glad you're here. And please talk about the orange HUD.
I remember one of the reviews we got, which was a perfect score, and they said they effectively said this is basically a perfect game, except for the HUD. It's far too orange. And it's hard for me to remember what my role was in the HUD. I remember Ricardo was primarily on all UI stuff.
Right.
But I definitely know at the end, there was one day that I was just not in a very good mood, and they brought this over like this sort of user review of like the HUD, and it was like a 60-some page document that someone had written up about the problems with the HUD, and yeah, it was not a fun experience.
Oh. And I know you were very passionate about how the HUD was designed, because I mean, what you had done before was all UI stuff, right? And so you had a lot of experience doing UI, even though you hadn't done a lot of games. So you were one of the most vocal critics of, we need to do this HUD better. Like, this is how we should. I mean, even the back end engineering of the HUD, you had a lot of opinions about how the HUD should be engineered.
And you sat next to poor Ricardo, who was doing the HUD.
Yeah, poor Ricardo. I mean, it was, like all the other pieces of, games development. I think there wasn't sufficient planning up front, and sort of just as you go along and you get really ambitious, and then you cut really far back and you just keep sort of, going bipolar on these kinds of things. It's sort of this crazy experience.
If I remember correctly, pretty much every HUD programmer we had sort of went insane near the end of the project, and so we had Jason on Ratchet 1, and I think he was about to leave Insomniac, and Ricardo was going to replace him, and he told Ricardo, "Now I understand why people drink."
Well, no,
and then Ricardo came up to me at the end of one of the long days on this project, and he said, "Mike, now I understand why Jason understood why people drink."
It's a difficult place to be to do the HUD,
especially since nobody cares about the HUD until the very end when you have to redo everything.
Right.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is, like, you're never going to get any praise. Like, even if you made the best HUD in the universe, at the end people are going to say, "Oh, that's the guy that drew rectangles on screen."
And if I remember correctly, the HUD was a nice blue color to start with, and then it turned into the kind of unreadable orange later on.
Well, blue was that was Ratchet and Clank 2.
Right.
So we were just using the standard Ratchet and Clank 2 colors. And then, we're like, oh, we need to differentiate the HUD a little bit more. And there was a long debate about what color the HUD should be. And I know everybody felt very, very strongly about, what the HUD needs to look like.
Ooh, depth of field. Look at that. Another next-gen effect brought to you on the PlayStation 2. So we were talking about the night you stayed 3 nights in a row.
Yeah, we mentioned it. Yeah, so what was to get just really quickly, we got this super long, ridiculous list of this is everything that's wrong in the game, and it needs to get fixed. And it was an impossibly long list, like the kind of list you look at, and you're like, I don't know how this is ever going to get done. And so I just looked at it, and I was like, you know what? God damn it. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to buckle up, and I'm going to get this list done. And I'm just going to work until my list is empty. And that was basically 72 hours of sitting at my desk, just hammering out bugs, trying to get my, all my stuff off that list. And by the end of it, Ted came up to me, and it was like a Wednesday morning, and Ted came up to me and he's like, "How long have you been here?" And I like stopped for a second, and I was like, "What day is it?" And he's like, "Go home. Go home right now."
Yeah, that's a story. That's a story I tell to people as a cautionary tale.
Yeah, it's so hard to drift into it, though. I remember, one of the early birds was John Fiorito. And the number of times that you were just coding and coding and coding, and then suddenly John Fiorito walks back in, and you realize, wow, I've been here all night, haven't I?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh man.